Welcome to the Hub. It is a very special week, starting with today, the 13th of April. A week that we have been counting down in the last 2 months, and finally we reached that, and we have the pleasure to launch the Commonwealth Week at the Hub with the Governor of Central Bank of Uganda, Professor Mutebile, with CPTM companion, his colleagues, together with smart partners in the financial inclusion digital landscape group, Peter Switnam, Object Tech, Oliver Aram, Chainvine, plus virtually, some of them are virtually, so is Moses Nkunde in Tanzania. Moses, you are online?
Hello.
Okay, so
okay.
Moses Nkunde is actually known as Moses Supercomputer because kind of since Dar es Salaam 2013 he went on together with me to attract everybody, including those who are present today, and into this digital landscape from various angles. So thank you, Moses, and sorry you are not with us, but you'll be with us probably in the next few days. And of course Mike Brookbank, who again picked up more in depth in the last 2 years the whole idea and made a big input for the very very useful and quoted to the Commonwealth finance ministers. Is there anybody online? I'm just introducing the first interaction of the open house. Is there anybody online for the time being?
Yes, Moses is already online.
Okay, so and Moses Zungu, so Dr. Moses Zungu, he is from the Smart Partnership Hub in Swaziland in the Prime Minister's office, and Moses has a science background and very, very keen to understand and then share with others in the government in Swaziland the issue of financial inclusion, digital landscape, cryptocurrencies. So others may come online or otherwise through the door, but Professor Mutebile, as a CPTM companion, our chairman, wanted to make sure that when you are launching the CPTM Open House for the Commonwealth Heads of Government Week that starts, it's already started actually, but the real start is 16th next Monday. And next Monday, 53 heads of government will be arriving one by one. Foreign ministers already started to arrive. Permanent secretaries or cabinet secretaries will arrive, and various delegations. So there will be a real visible diversity of the Commonwealth in London.
Mihaela, the Smart 29ers are online now.
Okay, so and also there will be a Commonwealth Youth. So welcome. Is that Rachel? Can you introduce yourself?
This is Kasaija Tadeo.
So that's Keddy in short, yeah?
There is Keddy is also here, Keddy Ronald is here, and Erica Breck is also here, and Florence is also here. But Rachel is joining us shortly.
Excellent, excellent. Well done, well done. And you are now in the new hub, which is shaping up.
Not yet. We are still working around everything to make sure that the hub becomes operational, but we have not yet occupied the offices yet.
Well, not yet, but kind of. Okay, well done to mobilize yourself. So, Professor Mutebile, the Commonwealth spirit is very much within the smart partnership, kind of manifested through both the smart partnership itself, principle and philosophy. As you know, not only His Excellency President Museveni, but all his colleagues for years by now,
Yes.
they are promoting and articulating in their own national or regional context, from the Caribbean to the Malaysian and so on. But it's also through the way people, in particular, the way people relate to each other. This smart partnership trust, which, without necessarily yet the blockchain technology that is supposed to do the same thing in the last few years. And obviously when the blockchain technology was talked about, particularly in the context of the financial inclusive central bank governors, all the smart partnership movements said, well, this is something that we all smart partners are about trust, among other things. So, of course, it relates in a very special way, the blockchain technology, be that you are central bank governor or science advisor or head of government or, So this week, the entire kind of week, in parallel with the Commonwealth Heads of Government Foreign Affairs Ministers, we are going to dedicate it to the program or projects that will emerge in a cooperative smart partnership framework way for the 2018 to 2020, which is the next Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting, to the what is called leveraging the value of data, etc., which we've been trying to pull together in the last few years. So this is what is a value that CPTM and smart partners are bringing to the Commonwealth through their own smart partnership trust and the issues that they are focusing on around technology. Now the open house, because Tan Sri Omar is our chairman, going to take me to task, he's watching actually. He asked me to remind everybody the open house is one of the smart partnership engagement of CPTM, the others being open house, the other being smart partnership dialogue, that is very famous now, think tanking sessions, farmhouse retreats, among others. The dialogue in general is a meeting of smart partnership movement hosted by a country together with other countries. It's a platform for reinforcing the commitment of smart partnership principles, which are built into the manifesto or limitless opportunities, and is about sharing experience on issues related to governance for development. That's what it's all about. The deliverables are information, experiences, views on current and emerging global and national issues, signals for the futures, but which are selected, potential solutions for various parts of the development of the society. Think tanking, as different from the international smart partnership dialogue, we had two in Uganda, in Munyonyo, for instance, and the last one was in Dar es Salaam. Think tank is a mini dialogue on a specific topic like the financial inclusion, for clarification, comprehension, in a very kind of person-to-person way, and usually at the hub. Then the farmhouse, which probably you haven't heard of that yet, but again, it was launched in Malta at a farmhouse, which became the smart partnership farmhouse for all our kind of group. Farmhouse is an intensive soul searching, a boot camp for strategy, direction and operational issues for the entire network of networks. The open house, as different from all the others of smart partners, it originated from Malaysia. It related to Malayan practice of inviting relatives, friends, and associates into one's home, like is this home, the Smart Partners Hub, library, during a festival, and to share and enjoy food and drinks and stories. An open house is sometimes held during the dialogue now, like it was in Munyonyo, was the most successful open house dialogue of the largest kind that you can have. As a special center to share specific experiences that you ask other smart partners, and then you continue to be in touch with them and you invite them to your own home. So that is what is your open house, and this is what is the intention to be now in London during Heads of Government, and to meet our people who have been serving in the library, various discussions about various initiatives. I put another separate kind of add-on to this definition of Omar, and you will say I always have the last word, but it isn't really. He said it all. I said open house, the life we share. Open house is a guide to creative people, right? Around the world, around the Commonwealth, who open their homes and private spaces, inviting the public to enter and experience life together. Life of all kinds, good or bad. We believe in strengths of hospitality, in welcoming and sharing what we have and what we do, delving into the lives of those who build local and global communities. Open house draws like-minded people together to form intimate relationships that feel like home wherever we are. So here we are, and I thought that because it is the initiation and the launch of the open house, I will spend more time, but from now on you can use the smart to moderate us, a smart drum. Right. Okay. So
we begin now.
Please. So the financial
Open house.
inclusion and open house.
Yes.
Okay. Professor
Well,
Mutebile, what do you think about the financial inclusion and digital landscape? I mean, Uganda.
I must say that the digital landscape promises
A lot, but
a lot. But we need to interact wisely about it, because if we don't, we might get lost.
almost.
The whole point about financial inclusion is to try and open up the financial sector to all members of society who are not, for the time being, involved in a very meaningful way in financial matters. They don't have a bank account. They don't have finance managers. They don't have access to all types of relationships that we would call financial relationships. And so it is very important that we develop financial inclusion to the ultimate objective of expanding into the digital landscape without losing anybody in the process. Because digital landscape is a special landscape. We cannot afford, while going into this landscape, we cannot afford to financially exclude others in the process. I must make this point very clear. Fiscal landscape, the kind of areas involved, not only do they have blockchains, which many people don't understand, But they also have very complicated mathematics algorithms involved. So we need to try as much as possible to explain these algorithms in a way that, as far as possible, only people can understand.
It's like talking analytics in a plain English.
Absolutely.
Rather than...
I thought I should make that point.
Yeah.
Very important too, because I know how much it has taken me to try and understand this element of what we're trying to do. And it has not been easy. And I'm a central bank governor. So please don't try and exclude other people in the process. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Msabila. So maybe we kind of invite.
Please.
Anybody wants to come in and quick
Sure.
from here, or
I can say something. I think
Professor
Please.
Msabila?
I think you're right that we should not confuse people with the AI and the technology and the process is actually the most important part, and we can get lost in technology without actually thinking about process. I was actually with an oil company, Total, yesterday, and
Total?
And they were one
Total are the oil.
That's right, oil and gas. I think one interesting thing they were doing was they were training 200 local welders actually in Uganda, which this is a clever thing, right? Because if you share the knowledge and you train your interns or your apprentices there, and I think this creates a grassroots movement. So all of these agricultural hubs, and forgive the pun, but it needs to come from the grassroots. The man on the woman in the country on the ground, they need to be incentivized to be in the financial system.
Absolutely.
So it's not just financial system as such. Are those the grassroots? They are involved in agriculture, in all sorts of things,
Yes.
whatever it is. So an agricultural hub is connected to
Please
that.
don't come in.
Yeah, I always am. It's important not to lose the people out of this. In reality, that's the grassroots where it comes from. And one of my problems and advantages in this is I see everything as a black box. So I'm an old mechanical engineer. I'm not an electronics engineer or a systems engineer. And so I don't quite understand how it all fits together. But I do understand very clearly how it all integrates and what we can use it for. So none of us here need to understand, though some of us may, exactly how a blockchain works. We need to understand what it can do, what it can't do, and what the risks associated with getting it to do things are. And for me, I think the great thing that we can do is to use the blockchains as a trust network that can reintroduce right across the globe. It's not just a financial equity thing, but it's into all our dealings between people and between entities, a level of trust again, and a level of accountability and a level of transparency. And that's part of getting the grassroots, as you were saying, involved, because one of the reasons they don't get involved in things is because there's no incentive, or in fact very often there's a disincentive.
And Mahela, you asked me this question 2 years ago. I think actually one of the central bank governors,
A bit louder, yeah.
Professor, you may have asked me, you said, tell me in 10 seconds what this technology can do.
Yeah.
And I said, well, okay, I've got 10 seconds, that's quite, I was at the airport, a bit short time, but
that's
we reduce the cost of trust by using this. That's the main thing. So if we reduce the cost of trust of doing business, we can increase business margins for the people on the ground, and thereby disincentivize people to say, I want to be part of the system because actually the system works for me. So it's like reducing that cost. That's what I believe.
So you
Hello,
also
Mahela, it's
yes,
Mike here.
Mike, yeah. It's
I
Professor
hope you can hear me.
Mutabila. Is Mike?
One of the things that I've heard the conversation, and the thing that I see is developing use cases or scenarios for this technology. So
I'm not sure who was speaking as the mechanical engineer. I totally agree
Pete.
them. That the key thing is to be looking at the application of the technology and how it can be used for improved financial inclusion or changing supply chain management. And this week I met a team from IBM who had started and created a very small blockchain environment. I just call it blockchain environment to look at disease related to cabbages. But they'd built that technology out into a number of other use cases. So they'd used a fairly simple use case of looking at where cabbages came from, and now they were using it for supply of food from the farm to the fork. So from the farmer through the abattoir, through cutting plants, through packaging plants. So
probably through also trade of a kind.
All types of trade and finance. But the interesting thing was that they developed that supply chain, and say there were 4 elements of that supply chain. They then developed it and are developing it with adding components on or people on. Mm-hmm. So they can add vets or veterinary surgeons on to look at the health of animals. They can add other farmers on. They can add other pieces onto this blockchain technology. So they can do enhanced data and analytics on the information they're gathering. So what I'm trying to say is you could start with a very simple use case within a country and build it out into something that actually changes the whole country.
Okay. So I suppose the bank, the central bank in Uganda, that's what they did. They started first by the way of financial inclusion. Yeah?
Yes.
But in specific areas, maybe now
we're moving towards.
They're moving towards. In fact, about a few years ago, you specifically focused on agriculture,
Yes.
isn't it? That's very, very relevant. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Moses, any of the two Moses, supercomputer Moses or the kingdom Moses? Are you online?
Hello.
Is that, who is that one?
Which Moses is that?
Moses Dar es Salaam? Are you online? Moses?
Yes, Michaela, I'm online. Can you hear me?
Okay. Well, of course we hear you very well. It's just it was a delayed, but go ahead.
I've been listening on the development of the usage of technology for the financial inclusion, and I really like to hear more on how in Uganda they are going to use blockchain in agriculture, especially as a platform to provide more financial inclusion. As we have been discussing before, blockchain as a platform can be used in different ways in the area of the financial inclusion. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes, you go ahead.
Yes. I can use it in different ways. And there are a lot of innovation which can be done to make sure that the platform, or we can discuss on the framework that can be used to create a platform that can be applied in different sectors, not only in agriculture. And the way I've been thinking, the framework might include the issue of applying blockchain, the issue of accounts, specifically to look at the issue of ownership of accounts, and also the issue of accessibility of the account. And the issue of repayment can be another dimension. The issue of saving credit and financial resilience, that can be used as framework on how that can be applied. And also the expansion of the financial inclusion. So that can be a good framework that can be used to apply in other sectors.
Yeah. Moses, just hold a second. Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm not sure what you want me to say.
Well, I mean, Moses, I was very curious for us to see if we can get some views from you on how the idea of exposure to the blockchain technology, etc., was introduced within the Bank of Tanzania, Central Bank of Tanzania, where Professor Bernard, the governor of the bank, also CPTM companion, brought in Oliver and Pete and yourself, and you've been kind of you exposed about 40 or so of the staff in the bank. So what do you think about the usefulness of that approach, and if you know of any feedback, because other banks probably will want to do the same thing, central bank.
Exactly. Mihela, the seminar, we can say workshops like that, they are very useful. And I can just explain that when we had a discussion in that day with the Central Bank of Tanzania, we exchanged a lot of information. And it gives us information to know, first of all, to understand their readiness, and also to know the implication of delaying to adopt this kind of technologies. I believe such a kind of seminar, half-day seminars, are very important to other members of CPTM, so that to make sure that we start to utilize these technology as fast as we can, and then to minimize the risk of being late in using it. Because I remember the director of the risk of the Bank of Tanzania, he was very thankful because he saw the risk, for example, of these cryptocurrencies which are operating in the financial system of Tanzania without being regulated, and the implications that can have in the economy widely. So I believe that these type of seminars are very important. If they can be scheduled to number of CPTM country members, it will be a very good thing.
Did they get in touch with you since?
Yes.
Okay.
We have been meeting with the director of ICT in various meetings, and the discussion of the blockchain now has gained momentum in Tanzania.
Is it in association with cryptocurrency, or is it specifically within the, to try to understand? Huh?
If we look at the blockchain as a landscape, you'll find that there are a lot of innovations in the part of the cryptocurrency, and there are individual companies which have already penetrated, I think not only in Tanzania, but many countries in Africa. So regulators at the central bank, I think they're a bit late in some aspects. So there are lots of discussion which are going on the issue of how regulations that are going to be innovated in such a way that they will be able to at least to understand how cryptocurrencies operating.
Yeah. Hi Moses, I trust you well. It's Oliver here. I
A bit
there were-
louder. Yeah.
Sorry, I believe there were two really strong takebacks from the day in Tanzania, and there was this need to regulate Bitcoin, which is almost impossible. You can't regulate cash once you take it out of the ATM. But what I did suggest to another central banker 2 weeks ago is the banks need to speak to their internet protocol providers. Now, when there are these scam websites that go up, saying we're an exchange, come buy your next Bitcoin here, you can get these things shut down. So the central banks may be able to get more help through other sectors, such as your internet protocol providers. So what we can do is begin to shut down the bad actors. But then also at the same time, there is existing framework, commercial licenses for commercial banks and consumer protection. These two types of regulations can be applied to people who want to buy a cryptocurrency, but only from a permissioned exchange, in which the central bank can say, these people are of good character, and to a certain degree, we trust them, but this is a highly, extremely volatile type of value you're getting into. But on the positive side, I believe that the token economics can help the central bank. So the central bank said it feels like we're under attack from cryptocurrency. Actually, the central banks aren't under attack more. It's the commercial banks who have more to lose from cryptocurrencies. Because this is one question that came up with the multinational yesterday. Do you see the possibility of us as a multinational being able to issue our own digital cryptocurrency? And I said yes, but only if the central bank in which your country you operate, or your headquarters are, allows you to do so. So there are some different ways to think about it. So we said maybe we could have Tanzanite coin or Serengeti coin.
Yeah.
But these coins actually incentivize people in local areas as well. So the whole coin or is maybe a misconception or tokens, but there is smart ways in which incentives can be put in through a digital manner. But I just think we have to use the same laws and regulations we have now to keep bad guys out. Because the only difference between Bitcoin and a bar of gold is it's a lot easier to run with Bitcoin. Because gold's heavy.
In fact, you don't need to run at all.
Yeah, exactly. You can or swim.
You just stay there and say nothing.
But I think there is so much existing framework that we can apply immediately, and consumer protection is perhaps one way of looking at it.
Okay.
Actually, Moses in Swaziland. Moses, are you online?
Yes, Michael, I'm listening. I'm online and listening carefully.
Okay, I know you're listening very carefully because you were put on the spot in December and you're put on the spot next week. Could you tell us about that?
Well, we just are going to be having a think tank at the university on cryptocurrencies and coming from a very practical perspective, opposed to discussing the cryptocurrencies in a very academic way. They just want to have people with input, very practical, and I'm getting some very, very useful insights, like the comments that you cannot regulate money once it's been taken out of the ATM, and this is actually telling us what happens when you get into the digital space and invest your money.
But this is a Ministry of Commerce, you are saying, right?
No, this is the Department of Commerce, not the Ministry.
Sorry, the Department of Commerce in Swaziland.
Within the yes, the investor.
Okay, because we brought in last year this issue of trade, which you might want Oliver to repeat again. Do you want Oliver to kind of rehash
the trade finance?
The trade finance.
Stages.
Yeah.
Sure, if you like.
Yeah, please.
So I think we were saying about agriculture. Why is agriculture connected to the financial inclusion in the beginning? So chain vine, and there's a reason why it's called chain vine. We started off with fine wine, which is quite good fun, because if you like technology and wine, it's always a good idea. But it's all in the name. The roots are in the vine. The vines are very strong. But what many people have forgotten in trade and finance is, what are we trading and what are we financing? So if we look at the first stage, we have to have provenance. Provenance begins in the field, or the farm, or the mine. And then once we have that provenance, and we have this digital identity of the provenance, or the value of the aspects around it, we can move on to the second stage, which is supply chain and IoT. Now, once we can control our goods and know where our goods are going, and we can become more efficient in doing
IoT is
Internet of Things. So devices attached with blockchain, feeding information back. Say we were talking about wine. Maybe we're looking at the tilt and temperature of a massive vat of wine and making sure that it doesn't spoil. And if it does spoil, whose fault was it? Who was carrying it at the time? But once you have these two kind of fundamental things, provenance, supply chain, this is where it gets very interesting. You have trade and finance, traditional banking activities, repo, hedging, letters of credit. And once you have that, that's where you can really begin to say, we can start saving costs here, push back down some of those costs to the guy underground and say, you know what, we can pay you more because it's costing us less to get it to the top. And then that's the fourth stage, the top, which is yourself, the government, regulation and all of that. And
you talk about Ugandan coffee, which is beautiful.
But there was a recent.
But you can't have it here.
There was a recent study from a hedge fund. I think it was the Louis Dreyfus hedge fund. I don't know if you saw that, Pete. They did it was agricultural trade and finance. They managed to push down the costs fivefold. So if we can push down the costs even by even 5 or 4 or 3, this is money in the pocket of the person at the end, and we can keep a control on these people in the middle who are generally the ones that are actually taking the money from the guy on the ground and say, actually, no, you know what, that's not fair. You actually sold that coffee for twice as much as you said you were going to sell it for. You should push some of that price back down to the farmer.
And that's the trust.
Yeah.
That the fact that you will be able to see that transaction happening and know how it affects you. So, you know,
if only it could be quantified, the value of trust which is brought in vis-à-vis the necessary things which need to happen around applying or integrating blockchain technology. It would be very useful to...
And we use trust as a homogeneous thing, and the reality it isn't homogeneous. We trust different things, different people, different organisations, different governments or whatever to do different things. So we tend to trust our government to police our cities, good, bad or differently, but we tend to trust them to do it. We don't necessarily want to trust Facebook to police our cities, but we trust Facebook, despite what's going on at the moment, with our photographs and our memories
Do
and
we
our
trust
and
or
our
is
links.
inevitable we use it?
We trust them for that. We may well not trust them to keep it all safe, but we trust them to keep it all confidential, but we can't trust them to keep it safe. The Facebook servers are not going to go down and lose my information.
No, absolutely.
My house may burn down and my computer hard disk may be useless, or however I have it stored. So, you know, there are different levels of trust in different places for different things. The interesting one is, who do you trust more around money, your government or your bank? And in reality, you probably say neither. In reality, but you can trust people that you have some form of control of, and that's what this blockchain stuff will allow us to do, to bring that in. And so the cost of trust, well, is priceless. Almost, you lose trust,
But
you lose almost everything.
Yeah, Pete, although one doesn't want to also introduce the idea of AI, artificial intelligence, alongside, because that in itself is an umbrella of all kinds of things. But when we were discussing about application of AI to accounts, to auditing particularly, what last year we've been told that, for instance, a very practical application which is ongoing now of the AI, including blockchain technology, was trying to spot anomalies in the audit that, which otherwise will be more difficult and more costly to do.
Yeah, I think that's where you can blend the two technologies.
So that is the next phase, is an
It's
integration.
garbage in, garbage out is a good saying, you know, with technology. If there's garbage put in, then you're going to get garbage out. So I think it's all about the process, Mahela, and the blockchain and the AI are just the tools we're using to help us with a process. So we shouldn't get too hung up on them, but I think the process, the AI, because I don't really think that there's sort of artificial intelligence is a bit of a misdemeanor.
No, that's why we need to demystify that from now on. And Prof, actually, you mentioned at the beginning about this algorithm mathematics. That is what it's all about. around AI?
Well, it's a number of things around the
Yes.
algorithms. So, 5 years ago, we say the rich people in the next decade are the people who gather data, own data, or
Train.
own the algorithms that analyse the data. That's changing now a little bit. So we've gone through quite quickly, I think, the complete age of megadata, and we're on to some. We're onto a different stage, and the thing about blockchain is we can put it right down to people who are currently excluded, let's say, from the financial system, of which there are 4 billion people. More than half the world's population is either unbanked or underbanked, and we are developing now processes and systems which are equally important, and the political will, I think, to begin to see that being able to bring people into economic resilience, I think, and that's what the blockchain offers. And also underpinning that, because I'll get told off if I don't mention this, I think is identity. The trust comes from being able to identify people, but I would say that because I come from an identity company.
So it's the identity of goods for us, but we have to identify the people around it. I mean, you mentioned coffee.
Yeah.
I have to show you an app in a moment. We can't show the people on telephone, unfortunately. But it was Fair Trade Coffee, one of our first projects.
Yeah. But we also were trying to bring in the Smart 29er, the youth, because when we're talking about distributed, not only the fact that the younger generation are not bothered about what it is Facebook or not, they're just using it, and they're using and innovating on the way. But the idea of them being trained, Prof, you had something in mind you want to about in Uganda about Smart 29ers, for them to be trained. I don't know if they are online.
Yes.
Yeah, maybe they want to speak.
Please. 29ers.
29ers. Is that Rachel or Ted or Teddy Tadeus? Florence.
Rachel Tadeus is also here, and Florence.
Okay.
Go on.
So go on, whoever is there.
Yes.
Yes, Naila.
Okay.
I heard about the governor's submission on financial inclusion, and I noted a few issues. He talks about the issue of technology going through a number of phases, and some of those issues being very complex to an ordinary person. So, as Martin, we have taken off some time to also acquaint ourselves with some of these technologies and these new inventions. So I believe for Uganda's context, we are in better place for us to work closely with the Bank of Uganda in trying to interpret and understand some of these complex emerging issues, like he talks about algorithms and blockchain. So it will definitely take a bit of time for us to get everybody on board. But for Ugandan context, like the way we are organized, the Smart 29ers who usually meet every Friday and engage in discussions on some of these topics, of course with the global pool of knowledge that we get a lot of experience and there's a lot of knowledge which we keep sharing amongst ourselves, and that also helps us. So the knowledge we have, of course, has to reach out. So we are very glad that now there is a relationship being established with the governor and the Bank of Uganda. So we believe we will be in position to put, a block or two in this transition.
Okay, so roughly how many are in a network of 29ers in Uganda? Potentially.
Smart 29ers in Uganda are over 200, and then we are spread across the country. Like we briefed the governor, and we have all incessantly briefed you in Haila.
Yeah.
We have a team in Kagadi, we have one in Tororo, that is in the eastern part of this country. We have another team in Hoima. So, and these people also meet once in a while. So sometimes the coordinating hub in Kampala, of course, goes and checks on them. We try to use, of course, social media to keep our interactions, even though they are in a different region, but we keep in touch.
Actually, this is an example of what, we shouldn't go in detail into that, but into what is called a scale-free network, because everything is being scaled, but without blockchain technology, actually you can't achieve a real scale-free networks. But we should probably get in the next 2 years more in detail into scale-free networks. So I suppose the only other thing, Prof, is that the 29ers, for about so many years, they are having an obsession, one would say, to have an office. On the other hand, and probably they are correct, but on the other hand, the fashion is, or the temptation is, to be asset free as much as you can. So you don't be bothered about office and
the computer.
Maybe have a computer and get together and whatever. So what Oliver was telling us about this intangible economy, but in January I've been to Pitt. They are a very well-known and big company in digital landscape in identity. And I thought, well, I'm going to their office. But actually, they are much better than we are, because, can you explain this Barclay Rise and all that, so that we give them a bit of idea?
It's not an unusual thing, certainly around a lot of the fintech hubs, where you get 20, maybe more companies of various sizes and various stages of development working in the same building. So we all share a photocopier, we all share a receptionist, and some people have bought a room, their office, in this big building. We
but never you have a long table.
Yeah, we simply used to sit at a long table next to, actually, some people from IBM on one side and some people from Barclays themselves on the other. So yes, it is a way of reducing the costs of doing business. But that's also been around in a lot of places for a long time, or is that approach?
It seems that this intangible, gig type.
I think there's another way here, and actually we've just, I was in a conversation in Stockholm yesterday where I agreed that we would take on interns. So we would take on interns, and this is what we could do in places like Uganda and Tanzania. We can take on young 29ers and say, actually, do you want to work on a real blockchain project? Do you want to do a bit of coding, get yourself involved, teach yourself, know what we're doing, and learn from the guys who have been in the area, and as we do projects in countries, we should also give back to those countries. And that's what I believe in. It's a collaboration thing and sharing knowledge, and also educating the young as to why we're doing it, and then actually giving them the skills at the same time. So I think that is actually
that's the way to go.
Yeah,
absolutely. And Prof, the next 2 years, we showed you a concept for the next 2 years for the entire CPTM, which Pitt particularly, with all of us, we're trying to see how in the next 2 years, Mike Brookbank, Moses. So what do you think how should we go around? Because we're thinking about maybe, not we, but about 10 countries or so, and after that sharing with the entire Commonwealth, but 10 countries or so, one should earmark some of these things to do with blockchain and from the central banks with slowly statistics offices or others who are involved in. Pete, you want to say a bit about this? Because Prof...
that's an inevitable process of globalisation. One of the sad things about the political environment we find ourselves in now is that the whole globalisation process is being retrenched into a much more insular set of processes. But that you can't put the technology genie back in the bottle. The ability now for me to sit in... to sit in London and work in real time with somebody in Kampala or I can't remember any of the other cities in Uganda. You'll have to
Dar es
forgive me.
Salaam.
No, well, Dar es Salaam's
Haifa,
at the,
Haifa.
I was meaning not just even in the capitals, but
Hoima,
outside of
Hoima,
that.
sorry.
Is a very real possibility. So Oliver's internship process means we're spreading a whole set of knowledges out to, but we're still talking about a relatively empowered, privileged group. The point then is to push that again. It's the next step out beyond that, which becomes the financially inclusion process.
So we're doing a bit in India actually, because our CTO is Dr. Rajiv, obviously. So we're taking on we've taken on students before, and okay, some are really good, and then some are extremely bad. But that's what you take the risk. But, but the good ones are the really good ones, and this is where it gets fun.
Yeah, that's just
where somebody enjoys working with you and they learn. And this is what I think we need to do more of here.
Mike.
Yeah.
Mike?
No, it's just another comment. It's just something I just heard. We were talking about the smart 29ers or various people. So over the Christmas break, I did a blockchain developers course, and this was freely available from Coursera. It's based around specific technology of Hyperledger, but it takes somebody from very low level of knowledge of blockchain right up to writing code. And I was really impressed with it, and I think one of the elements of helping, the greater community is looking at material like that and getting groups of people trained up using this type of technology. And it's a combination of largely what we've described, a mix of technology, but also looking at business scenarios, or business or practical supply chain scenarios.
Okay. Okay. So we are talking about the next 2 years. Do you have any comments on the concept, or you tell us a bit later?
No.
Prof, you tell us a bit later about it. He's a bit more engaged. One thing we haven't talked about, and we must, all this financial inclusion and central banks and regulation and so on, they rely very much on lawyers, on legal, and we have one here. And he's not punished to be with us, but he has something to tell us, which he just found about an hour ago. What was that all about? Nick Mohammed was... Can you introduce yourself?
Yes, I'm Nick Jan Mohammed, and I now work for Michaela at CPTM. It was just something that was reported in the last day from Bermuda, where they have launched a very large project to put into legislation the framework to enable Bermuda to regulate and permit the growth of virtual currencies. So, as you'd expect from a financial centre which has a lot of banking and insurance and other business and expertise, they have already decided to move fast to take the lead in their part of the world by creating an environment that they hope will introduce in a legislative format the regulation and, most importantly, therefore, the trust to allow the development of the use of virtual currencies in as safe a way as possible.
It's that Stan Stornacker, isn't it, and the Vencash? Vencash, I believe, Stan Stornacker.
So, Professor Mutabile, how many lawyers do you have in the bank or access to? Limitless, right?
Limitless.
But except that the limit is how much one can pay them. And how much do you trust them if they understand blockchain and virtual and so on? Oh, sorry, isn't it? Virtual currency. I understand in World Bank next week at the spring meetings, there will be a lot of discussion about...
Yes, there will be.
One is a big data, big session. But one thing that I noticed, and I thought it might be very useful to know from you and your colleagues on the way back, there was one session which associated risk of not taking serious, not just rejecting but not adopting it without the blockchain and digital. It's called the state fragility for development. Now, I think probably alongside developments of this blockchain technology and the understanding of it, the fragility of a state, that is economic, security or otherwise, will be measured or related particularly to how much the distributed information and knowledge of this. What do you think? And I suppose with this we might close the discussion. But what do you think, Prof? You have such an experience for so many years.
Not with blockchain technology.
Not with blockchain. This is only starting.
Yes.
But the fragility of a state, how would you do you think would benefit from blockchain and so on?
I think there's a number of ways of looking at this, because state fragility or otherwise has an enormous number of layers to it. But one, you can look at the tax take, for example. So one of the issues about cryptocurrencies, and one of the rationales, of course, for someone like Bermuda legislating around it, is that there will be a way within that legislation that they can get at the information they require to be able to tax transactions, movement and wealth creation.
Can you please don't interrupt?
Just listen to the few more points.
Listen,
Thank you.
Please.
That's okay. But and then along with that, of course, but if you can use the blockchain to bring more people into economic activity, or above subsistence level at least, then you can begin to tax that as well. So there is a negative side on one side and there is a negative on the other. Finally, on that sort of political level, one of the issues around cryptocurrencies is that they are outside the nation state's ability to influence it. So one of the debates is Bitcoin a currency or is it a commodity? And actually the way in which it was traded before Christmas, running up to $20,000 a coin from a few hundred, is actually, it was a completely speculative commodity and not a currency, even though it exhibits the attributes required to be a currency. Yeah. But I think the risk is getting left behind, and the risk is falling foul of the snake oil salesmen, people who promise everything on blockchain and deliver nothing.
Just want to backpedal up there a bit, if I may, Professor.
Please.
And also what you were saying about legal framework there. I live in Sweden. We have sort of a mixture of civil and common law. In the UK we have common law. In Uganda I'd imagine you have sort of common law as well.
Yeah. All the commonwealths. This is the advantage of a commonwealth kind of connection.
But there's one extremely important fact here that we all must remember. In one way or another we all have property rights, be that the government or the individual. So the framework, there's nothing new really here. If you even if it's on the blockchain or if it's been decided by IA, if it's clear in a court of law that your property rights have been disregarded and not taken seriously, then we already have existing legal framework for this. And you're right, because I was asked to do an interview for a magazine about is Bitcoin a commodity? It's being used to buy property in Dubai. So I said, okay, you can look at Bitcoin as a commodity because oil in the ground is worth less than oil in a barrel. And there's Bitcoin requires mining. I know it's a conceptual, technological thing.
It's an inverted comma mining.
Exactly, but it is in many ways. Everything these days is a commodity. Our intangible assets that we have. I know a gentleman whose company they designed to help African music writers keep control of their digital rights to their music.
In Lesotho and Swaziland, isn't it, Moses? Yeah.
So talk to me if you want.
About the choir. So the hub in Lesotho will want that. We'll want that. Yeah, we're grasping with that problem a number of years. But Prof, what do you think about the fragility? Going back to you, How would you?
Point has been made that the fragility of a state is impossible to measure. It is immeasurable.
Uh-huh.
And
There's a
that will
qualitative.
continue with or without cryptocurrency.
Yeah.
Yes, it will. I don't think cryptocurrency is not a threat to the nation state, but it is one of the realities of
That is a
economic activity
Yeah.
now.
Yes.
Again, it won't be put back in the bottle,
No.
so
Yes.
you have to interact with it in
Yes.
some form.
Absolutely.
Okay, I suppose, Prof, the one of the very inability of our group for 25 years or so to explain what is unique about this group and the discussions that take place is exactly what happened now. And that is the value to Commonwealth. So you see, we are not split into the Commonwealth use or Commonwealth technologies or Commonwealth governors only and so on. You're talking about specific dimensions of development with quite informed background, like Mike, Moses, and Oliver, and
29ers.
the 29ers, the enablers, and so on. So, and yourself on the top of it, with a lot of experience of political and otherwise. But anyway, you're part of the initial kind of independence and making up the nation.
Yes.
So, I suppose, Prof, we want to pin you down with a Commonwealth Summit Smart Partnership. That is an old one. Pin. So
it's a
this
better one.
this is the one. I will take the old one.
Okay.
And we'll put you. This is
Okay.
the one that is was sent to all the heads of government and foreign affairs ministers.
Very good.
And now is going to the movement. Like the first one is yourself, and
I'm
those
glad
who are
that
here.
I brought the old one with me.
I will.
can
I
take
could
it
see
away.
that.
It's less weight to carry by the looks of it.
We'll take it away. But everybody will receive this pin. Could you keep this, please? So thank you very much, and your colleagues and our group of financial inclusion governors in Washington.
Good.
You tell them that
I will.
they will all. If you want, we can give you pins to give to the whole World Bank and Christine Lagarde to become a smart partner. But thank you very much,
Thank you.
Prof,
Thank
on
you.
behalf
Thank
of
you
all
very
the
much.
movement. And
Okay.
thank you to Moses and Moses from Swaziland and 29ers and Mike Brookbank and everybody else that will be sharing the first webcast.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Diana.
Okay.